Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today, we are digging into a really fascinating reinterpretation of the very beginning of the Bible, one that might just change how you look at this ancient text. So, let's just jump right in. There's this scholar, Milton Spenser Terry, and he kicks things off with a really sharp observation. He says that the bookends of the Bible, Genesis at the start and Revelation at the end, are both kind of shrouded in this haze of uncertainty. And because of that, we've ended up with just countless and often totally contradictory interpretations over the years. When most of us read the book of Genesis, our default setting is to think, okay, this is history. This is how the world began. But Terry suggests that if we just press pause for a second and look a little closer, that whole assumption starts to get a little shaky. He basically asks us to take a step back and really think about the style of the writing itself, especially in those first few chapters. I mean, are we really reading something that feels like a modern history book? Or is there something else going on here entirely? And here's Terry's big point. He says if we ran into these things, a talking snake, angels with flaming swords, people living for 900 years, light existing before the sun, in literally any other ancient text, we wouldn't even hesitate. We'd instantly know, right? We'd say, okay, this is symbolism, this is mythology, not a literal historical account. So this all leads to Terry's most fundamental suggestion. Before we even get into arguing whether the story is true or false, we have to ask a different question first. What kind of literature are we reading? Because trying to jam a history peg into a non-history hole, well, it just creates a mess. For a long time, you've had people trying to make Genesis line up perfectly with modern science. The idea that each day of creation was actually millions of years long. Terry's take? He argues those attempts are, frankly, unconvincing. And worse, they actually end up hurting the credibility of the text by trying to force it to be something it was never meant to be. Okay, so if it's not science and it's not history, what is it? Well, Terry proposes that one of the biggest clues is hiding in plain sight, right in the world where Genesis was actually written. And when we look there, we find some truly incredible parallels with other creation stories from that time. And wow, does this next part hit the nail on the head. When ancient Assyrian Cretan tablets were discovered, they told a story with a structure that is shockingly similar to Genesis. It starts with a watery chaos, check, then the separation of heaven and earth, check, then creating the sun and moon, and finally creating life. This strongly suggests they were both part of a shared literary tradition in the ancient world. And it wasn't just the Assyrians. This drive to explain where we all come from is one of the most basic human impulses. You see similar kinds of stories popping up all over the ancient world. What made the Hebrew account so radical and so different wasn't the structure of the story, but its strict, revolutionary monotheism, the idea of one God. Okay, so all of this has been building up to Terry's main argument. He says that Genesis chapter 1 isn't history, it isn't science, it's a completely different genre of literature. It's an apocalypse. Now hold on. When we hear the word apocalypse, our minds immediately go to the end of the world, right? Fire and brimstone. But Terry is using the word in its original Greek sense, apocalypsis, which just means an unveiling or a revelation. Think of it less like a disaster movie and more like pulling back a curtain to reveal a divine masterpiece using powerful symbols and images. And for Terry, the proof is right there in the elegant structure of the story itself. It's not a random chronological list. It's a perfectly balanced poem. Just look at this symmetry. It's incredible. The first 3 days are all about forming the realms, light, sky, and seas, and the land. And then watch this. The next 3 days are about filling those exact same realms in the exact same order. The sun and moon, the birds and fish, and the land animals and humans. This isn't a lab report. It's art. This leads him to a really powerful analogy. Terry says the 7 days of Genesis are symbolic in the same way the 7 seals or the 7 trumpets are in the book of Revelation. I mean, nobody reads Revelation and tries to pinpoint the exact date in history when the 3rd trumpet sounded, right? He argues we should treat the 7 days of creation with that same understanding. So you might be thinking, okay, if it's not literal history, then what's the big deal? Why does this even matter? And Terry's answer is a resounding yes, it matters. In fact, he says that letting go of the literal reading is the only way to unlock the truly profound truths the author was trying to share all along. See, the real power of the story isn't about scientific accuracy. It's about these foundational ideas, that there is one God, not a chaotic pantheon of gods, that the universe is ordered, purposeful, and good, not some random accident, and that humanity has a unique dignity and purpose. These are the world-changing ideas the story is really about. And you know what? This framework also clears up another classic biblical puzzle. Why are there two different creation stories back to back? Terry doesn't see Genesis 2, the story of Adam and Eve in the garden, as a contradiction. He sees it as another apocalypse, like a director zooming in for a close-up on day 6 to reveal even deeper truths about our nature, our relationships, and the sanctity of marriage. So in the end, Terry leaves us with this powerful thought. By reading Genesis not as a science text, but as a profound, symbolic unveiling, we can finally appreciate its timeless wisdom. We can stop getting stuck in these unnecessary fights between science and faith, and instead we can focus on the incredible vision of God, the world, and ourselves that this ancient masterpiece has been trying to show us all along.